everybody, it's Monday. Thanks for tuning in. Today I am reviewing the LORAC Pro 2 palette. So here's the LORAC Pro 1. It's black, this one's gray. All the way across the top we're looking at all matte shades and shimmers on the bottom. Something to note about these shimmery shades is that they're not loaded with sparkle or, little particles of actual glitter. It's a very fine shimmer. Also compared to the original, same sizing, a nice, very sleek, flat palette, and it does have that mirror in the top as well. The first thing that catches my eye when I glance at this palette is the navy. It's like that's immediately where my eye goes. It seems like the most intense, saturated thing in this palette. And when I cover that up and I kind of just look over everything else, it's a very muted color palette. I'm not saying they're not pigmented, I'm just talking about the choice that they made to put these particular shades in here. It's all like kind of a dusty, neutral type of palette. It almost makes me think of like a sepia color filter over it. When you cover up that blue, it's like everything is very, very muted. And I don't consider that to be a bad thing, but it's just like a different set of neutrals. I consider the LORAC Pro Original to be a very neutral color palette. It's got a lot of extremely basic shades. A lot of times people will ask me, which naked palette should I go for? And I really enjoy the naked palettes, but a lot of times I steer people more toward the LORAC Pro, especially if you don't already have a lot of eyeshadow palettes. This gives you so many great basics. And now with the addition of this, it's like, okay, here's just an expanded selection of neutral colors to work with. Quality-wise, to me, I think it's fantastic. I think it's just the same kind of richness and texture of these powder shadows that I came to expect with the first palette. Something I've heard people complain about is like you put your brush into one of these shadows and maybe it kicks up some excess product, some excess powder. You really don't need to go scrubbing into these shadows with your brushes, but then I always tap off the excess. And that's just become like a standard thing that I do with any eyeshadow, just to get rid of that chance of fallout. But these are very nicely pigmented shadows. There's a nice creaminess to them, and I think they're exceptionally easy to blend. There's really just one actual shade overlapping in these palettes, and that's the black. I have no complaints about that. I think that's a really essential color in just about any palette. At a glance, you may think that there are some other shades that are close, and they are close. Like, for example, the light brown that's right in here, and then the shade called taupe that's right here in this palette. They look close. They are not the same shade though. Also in the original you've got this shade called pewter and then a color called chrome. Those look a little similar there, but they swatch out to be very different tones. Some of my favorites in this palette, I love Nectar, this matte peach. Great shade to buff out around the edges with. Mocha Is Gorgeous too. That's kind of like a deep rose gold, a little bit of bronze in there. It's a gorgeous neutral, great for a one shadow look. And I do love navy as well. And if you want to see more blue come out of that navy shade, layer it on top of some of this silver. I applied some primer on my lids before starting my look today, and then I took a little bit of buff around my inner corner. Then I used the rosé color all over my lid. I think this is a gorgeous shimmery shade. Then I brought in some plum and I layered some of that on my outer corner, also pulled some of that up into the crease, used a fluffier brush to help me move that shadow around a little bit more. Then I took Nectar, the matte peach, and with just a small brush used that right over the border of what's been happening in the crease, back to buff, and used that as my highlight just under my brow. Then under the eye I smudged a little bit of plum, and then I finished off the look with a nude liner in my waterline and some plum liner on my upper lash line, and then mascara on top and bottom lashes. As a whole, I really would recommend this palette if you love this kind of quality. If you really tried this and enjoyed it and you're thinking, I just want more shadows that feel that same way, I think you'll enjoy this one too. I think they can play nicely together. I think there are a lot of colors that could work from this one and you pair them together different ways. If somebody told me, hey, you gotta just pick one of those though, I still think that the original LORAC Pro is my top pick. It's got the most like essential shades in here. If you're just starting out, I think this is a great place to begin. I think this is exactly what LORAC probably intended it to be. Those slightly different takes on some neutrals. It's still a fun palette to use, and I think if you're a lover of eyeshadow palettes, you're gonna want to pick this one up. So thank you so much for checking out this review on the LORAC Pro 2 palette. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye!